Because when you look it up in the concordance, you get the word Raphaim.
Okay,
when you do your Hebrew word study.
It's a shadow person, is it? Where do we get
well,
the idea
we'll
that
get,
these are dark shadow beings?
Yeah, because what happened is, read this in Isaiah, and then we'll explain how this is shadow people.
Okay.
But anyway, again, the way my Bible, the text is, I overlooked because the rather short, here in Job, the rather short chapters, so that was chapter 26 and verse 5 in Job. That word dead is Raphaim. So over in the book of, let's see, go in Isaiah here. Isaiah chapter 26. Isaiah chapter 26 and verse 14. It says, they are dead. They shall not live. They are deceased. They shall not rise. Therefore hast thou vanished and destroyed them and made all their memory to perish. That word deceased, you look that word up again, Hebrew word study, that word deceased, you look that up, you get Raphaim. Okay, so what's happened is when these giants die, okay, they don't, their death is different from us humans because they're from immortal beings mating with mortal beings. So they're sort of like stuck here on earth. This is what is called the origin of evil spirits. Like when Jesus seen the man and he sent them into a herd of swine. That was these creatures. A lot of times when you're dealing with exorcisms and stuff, that's these creatures that you come upon, or these evil spirits, so again, the word devil is not in the Bible. Why I use King James? It might be in like your modern words, but the word devil, which means evil spirit, or demon, my bad. The word demon's not in the Bible, but demon just means evil spirit, which comes from the word devil. But yeah, these giants, when they die, their spirits are stuck here on earth. So that's why Satan was so mad, because he didn't have a physical army anymore. Now he has to work with this energy, these evil creatures. Because over in Psalms, remember, as we were telling you, these where they were dead, and their spirits are stuck here on earth, they were gaping and gnawing, trying to gnaw at Jesus as he was hanging there on the cross. And also the same place where the crucifixion took place is the same place where the giants once lived. That was their area there at Golgotha. But then it was called Bashan. And David actually took Goliath's head and buried it there where the cross went into the ground. That's where he buried. That's why he goes into this trance and writes. See, he actually, because Golgotha comes from Goliath, and the area where they lived was Bashan, so it's the same area, this crucifixion took place, the same area where the giants lived.
So let me just clarify one point here, because we've asked if these shadow beings should be differentiated from your typical ghosts. But what you're suggesting is that they were actually, they're evil spirits, they arose from dead entities. So in a sense, they could be called ghosts, a type of ghost.
Yeah, in a sense, you could call them a ghost.
As opposed to being, let's say, some spirit that was conjured up by a wizard or a witch, and that was never a living being. You're saying the Bible's pointing out that they might be evil spirits, but in a sense, evil ghosts, let's call them.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is, like I say, I like to title this Origin of Evil Spirits, because this is like the evil spirits that we hear about today. And this is where shadow people comes in, especially if you're around people that are on drugs, or you go in a place, they can see you and they can follow you home even. I live in an area that people get pretty rowdy around here, and that may be why I see so many shadow people, because people can pack them in your home, and they decide they may want to stay around. Because Satan can use this energy. He can use these creatures, just because they're dead physically.
The shadow people are drawn to those who perhaps are less than perfect individuals? They might be attracted to those who might have an inclination for wrongdoing or not living a pure life? Are you suggesting, because we have many cases of ordinary people seeing the shadows, including yourself, so I don't know if that would be true or not.
Well, there's
different. In fact, I might think they would be targeting, I would think, Benny, they might be, if they're the evil spirits, they would be targeting those who are pure of heart, more likely than evil ones, trying to harm
that is
those.
true, though. They do look for those. And now, me or anybody, they may see people who have this kind of understanding. They're like, hey, these people possess knowledge, and they may come into your home because you have an understanding, and you may be able to, like we just go back to looking at King Solomon. He was tormented. He had men to stand around his bed because of all the wisdom he had. He had an understanding. He had keys to knowing secrets to the universe. So therefore, Solomon, he's seen things. He experienced shadow people because they don't target pure of heart or evil. It's just for whatever their own desire. Like me, they may say, well, I'm going to come into Benny's home because he has this understanding and he accepts us and he doesn't try to cast us out, or for whatever the reason be. But a lot of times, in a lot of cases, this is why in some doctrines they teach that to not go to the movies, don't go to ball games, don't go to certain places because you can pack in evil spirits. Because you go and they may see you and they'll attach to you and come home with you. I've been in churches and places, and they'll tell you straight out, don't go to a ball game, don't go to amusement parks, because they're afraid of these creatures.
Contamination by evil spirits.
Yeah. Which we can't be afraid of this stuff. We got to live our lives and things, but it's important to understand. And they're not out all the time. I guess of course they're evil creatures, but like I say, I suffer from sleep paralysis, but they've not tried to. I want to try to understand more about them. I want to understand more about these creatures, because we still know very little. Even with the scripture, we still know very little about the creature. And then one, like you and I've talked about before, in theory, I've not studied that a whole lot, but when Saul went to the Witch of Endor to reach Samuel, there is a verse, I can't remember where it's at, but Samuel says, my spirit will become a lying spirit. So, in theory, that could have been when Saul was trying to reach Samuel. Was that really Samuel, or was that a shadow person that took on this form? And then there's been other cases where, like there's this one instance I know of. I heard a guy tell that this military man come to this woman's house and said, your son's been killed, whatever. And so this woman mourned and cried for weeks. Well, her son appeared to her, and he would talk to her and try to comfort her. And then, like, several months later, another military guy come to her house and said, listen, it's been a mistake. Your son's not dead. He'll be home shortly. He wasn't dead at all. But what had happened was the shadow people took on the form of her son, had this woman thinking that her son was really dead. She really thought she was communicating with her son on the other side, or whatever. And but her son was not dead. It was just a shadow person taking on that form. See?
Mm-hmm.
Doctor, are you still there?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
I just wanted to ask if there are any other biblical references to what you interpret as shadow people.
I think that's about it right now on the biblical references. There is well, you got anything or something I want to touch on right quick?
Before we finish, is just to acknowledge that there are other theories regarding the origin of the shadow beings that are very intriguing. And again, the idea they might just be evil demonic entities never having lived before, as opposed to the Raphaim, who would be dead and then resurrected as spirits. It could just be basic evil spirits, or creatures conjured up by perhaps a wizard or a witch, and then or some sort of curse that has created them. Then from a scientific basis, these could be, for example, entities from a parallel dimension who have traveled to our zone of existence, and that in making the transition from one set of dimensions to another, they appear as these ethereal beings, the dark shadow, when in their own home dimensionality, they might be solid beings like we are. But making that transition, perhaps, this is how they're seen. Then another intriguing idea, and I mentioned this before, these could be aliens who have been teleported from perhaps another planetary system, even another galaxy, and in that transition, they've lost their corporeality so that they only appear as these shadow beings when, again, in their home state, they would be naturally solid. But this is how they appear to us having gone through that teleportation. And then another idea that I find very intriguing, that these could actually be time travelers. And again, in making the transition from one temporal zone to another, they're not solid any longer, just appear to be these dark ethereal creatures. So a number of possibilities here, all of them intriguing, and I think it's a very fascinating subject.
Yeah, the shadow people are amazing creatures. You know, I mean, I might be wrong by saying this, but I don't think they're all maybe to do harm. I don't know. They've not tried to harm me. I want to learn more of them. Maybe I wish one would stand still. Maybe I could communicate with one. Also, if you get into, I know this is crazy. I probably shouldn't even say this, but like if you're listening to like some real dark, eerie music, and you begin to speak to these shadows people, maybe even refer to them as Raphaim or refer to them, you can draw their attention. You know, I know there's a lot of you guys out there, if you're listening, Vampire Freaks fan, Cradle of Filth, the very eerie music. If you listen to some really creepy, eerie music like Cradle of Filth or something like that, and you begin to speak this stuff, you could conjure them up. You can actually communicate, almost like tapping into this energy. It is sort of on the dark side.
Well, that's a real interesting question, Penny. Is it that they are receptive to this music and drawn to it, and that's why they might appear when it's being played, or is that music making you, or is the music making you receptive to their presence? It can go either way, it seems.
Do you remember the video Tapping into Ultimate Euphoria I showed you at church? Yes. It's kind of the same thing, except you're tapping into darker energy. You know, you can call, and I guess Satanists would use this to, I don't know a whole lot about the occult practices and things like that, but you can communicate with this the same way you would tap into this euphoria from the power of God. You can do this in other, too. You can communicate with these, and that helps actually draw in more shadow people. You can see more, just like you're inviting them in. It's kind of like dark practice, it's on the dark side of things. But yeah, you can communicate with them. Turn on some eerie music and begin to speak to these creatures, and you could
because I could see where we could conduct a semi-scientific study, have some individuals listening to this music and see if they report suddenly visualizing these entities. If that's the point that. See, I'm still not sure if the entities are being drawn to the music, or it's that you're now having your senses open up to these creatures that might actually be present more often than we realize.
Perhaps it's a combination of both. Those of you listening out there, do a search on YouTube, Tapping into Ultimate Euphoria, and you'll see a video that was filmed at my church, and you could see the good side of the force working. I mean, people were falling in the floor and everything, but it's because of the music. It's because the way the drums are being played, the way the music's being conducted. If the drums are not present, then that song doesn't have that effect. But if the drums are present, it has this euphoric effect on people. And same way on the dark side of the force, you can say, hey, I welcome you into my home. Shadow people, Raphaim, come into my home. Turn on this eerie music, welcome. So that's on the darker side of things, but yeah, Dr. Rule, we have 60 seconds left. You want to go ahead and take us on out?
Okay, I'll just make a real quick comment. There was an interesting case where a woman saw what appeared to be a woman in white, a ghostly woman in white, enter her bedroom, but then emerging from the bedroom was this black amorphous form that then took on the form of a full-fledged shadow human, but it went from being, in this very unusual case, being this glowing white to dark. That's the only case I know of involving shadow people where they made this transition. Something to think about, and may I say now, until next time, may the power of the cosmos be with you. Yes, yes, yes. Until next time.